Welcome to the Connected Teamwork podcast by Growth Leaders Network. How do we learn to truly thrive together? How do we stay connected to our authentic selves, each other, and our purpose as a team, especially when challenged? How do we unlock the deeper levels of group intelligence? Enjoy this episode of the Connected Teamwork podcast and learn practical tools to evolve the connectedness of your team to its next level.
Well, welcome to Connected Teamwork Podcast 25. My name is Hylke Faber. I'm your co-host together with Carson. Carson, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Hylke. How about yourself?
I am doing well. I'm grateful to have this conversation with you today about one of the somewhat difficult team-defining moments. One thing that we'd like to not talk about, especially not at this time of year, the holiday season. You're supposed to feel happy and open and everything has to be great. And we're going to talk about pain today. Ouch, ouch, ouch. So that's what we're going to talk about. And I thought, just because so many people are so busy and all of us are so busy at this time, many of us are before the holidays start, trying to get ready for vacations and wrapping things up. Why don't we start with a brief check-in, feelings and intention for this podcast about pain and ouch. And as you're listening, I'm inviting you to think about your relationship with that. I'll start. So my feeling is I feel present, grateful, open. My intention for this podcast is to help to normalize the relationship with pain and humanize it and make it part of leadership. If insofar it not already is, make it part of leadership so that we can truly connect to all of it. Because whatever we don't connect with, we disconnect from. It's very simple. Carson, what about you?
Hylke, thank you. I'm feeling inspired. And I think the reason why is because some of the greatest triumphs, learnings, and lessons can come out of situations that are marked with pain. And I think you said something very poignant when we began. We don't spend a lot of time diving into this. In fact, many of us spend time running from it. But if you embrace pain, and that's my intent for today, is to look at how that can actually be a great inflection point in your life, in your career. There's a lot of elements that we can't control about the pain, but we can certainly control how we react and respond to it, how we utilize it as a mechanism or as a tool or as a learning. So I'm excited to explore that with you today.
Great. Yeah. So as we start this off, I think let's start off with sort of this very mild pain, growth pain. So I'd like you to do something with me, Carson. And if you're listening, do it with me in your mind. I'd like you to cross your arms for a second. If you've been with me in workshops, you've almost certainly done this with me. And so now, please cross the arms the other way. Okay. And if you're listening, do this with us. And now relax again. So Carson, how is that the second time?
You take a moment to just make sure you're, but it's more, it was a lot easier because at first you don't know what to expect, but then it's, it feels familiar.
Yes. So at first it feels unfamiliar. And that unfamiliarity can be associated with pain, with discomfort. And, how many people get up in the morning saying, I want to feel pain? Not many, or discomfort. But most of us, especially in business, in leadership, are like, oh, I want to learn something. And this is such an age-old equation. Like, if we want to learn something, it often means that we're going to encounter some pain. So that's like a growth pain. And you could say that's and especially if we're intentional about it, just notice how your relationship with that pain already changes. Like, oh, I may not be very good at speaking in front of 1,000 people, but because I really want to inspire my organization, I'm going to learn how to do it. right? And so I have a reason to step through it. To me, that's the easier pain to deal with, even though it requires a lot of intention. The harder pain to deal with is when something lands on your lap that you didn't want, right? So you didn't make a goal. Somebody leaves. You feel not 100%. Somebody's doing something where you feel ethical considerations, like, "Ooh, that really hurts. Like, ooh, it feels really yucky." Um, I watched last night this new movie on Netflix, Leaving the World Behind with Julia Roberts. And if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend. But it's a movie about a lot of the amplifying a lot of the things in the world that are not so great, and just acknowledging that in that it's not easy to watch. So how we are with that pain. So before I keep on talking about this, Carson, what do you think about what's your relationship with pain and how do you work with it?
There's a lot of ways that you can look at this, and I think some will be inevitable. It's not. You have to understand that pain is not always earned or deserved or warranted. Right? There's going to be a fair amount of things that happen that are outside of your control, that happen unfairly, and your choice in that is how can you react and respond. And really, Hilke, you made a great segue because when you shine a light on some of the unpleasant or just atrocious things that happen even in our world, I think there's a predisposition for some of us to just look the other way. Not my problem. I can't do anything about that. But the reality is, look at the true change makers. These are people that have taken a look at these opportunities for change, and they've been outspoken amidst those debilitating setbacks for humanity. And I think that's why it's all the more important to look at that sort of a lens: is how can I react and respond, even if this was unwarranted or unfair, because pain is inevitable. The other, and even just slowing that down into the day to day, how you grapple with it when you're not feeling 100%. Do you have the strength of relationship with your team or other people that you're working with to be able to convey that, to ask for help? Because I think, and we've talked about this on other shows, establishing that basis, that foundation of trust and transparency and even vulnerability with your team. If you're expecting the best outcomes out of pain, you have to be very intentional in how you deal with the pain, but you've also got to have an infrastructure in place that is going to yield those outcomes. You have to develop a team where not only do they feel comfortable coming to you when they need some extra support or they need understanding or they need an empathetic ear, but you've got to give the exact same investment in your team. When you're not feeling 100%, do you have that ability to lean in and convey that to your team, to let people step up and help you and support you? Because it's a two-way street. And then the last thing I would say on the element of pain is that there are so many different varieties. The commonality, to your point earlier, Hilke, is the learning. Being able to look at each instance of pain, whether it's conflict on your team or not missing not being able to make a goal, being able to look to it and determine what the learning is, because that means that the pain wasn't for naught. I look back at the pains that I've had in my career on a personal level, on a team level, the ups and downs, sometimes the inconsistencies, but hindsight is 2020. You can't connect the dots forward. You can connect them back. And when I look at how in those moments of pain, I was able to harness, get back, recalibrate, understand what that common or that shared goal was, and move forward with a better understanding of the playing field, that made sure that the pain was not for naught.
I hear you say, Carson, something about daring to include it as opposed to pushing it away, which by definition makes us brittle, right? That what we don't want to see controls us because we build a fence against it inside of us and also outside of us. It's like, oh, and if I know that I can basically be with whatever, my pain, your pain, the world's pain, and stay in my values, stay unflinching, stay present, stay open. I may not stay like strong the whole time, because sometimes pain can be debilitating. But even then, my husband is a massage therapist also, and one of the things that I've learned from him is one way to work with pain is you create space around it, right? And if you take that metaphor to leadership, when we are in pain, it can be creating tunnel vision. Like, this is my whole experience. I remember an experience being part of a team wherein this same husband, who was still a boyfriend at the time, had left me. And I was in a world of pain. And I had a big workshop to do together with a colleague of mine the next day after that happened. And I remember having a conversation with my colleague about it. And my colleague was very skillful in asking me how I was feeling and what my intention was. And it was interesting to have those two questions, because I was able to name the feeling, but also to sort of step outside of it and saying, oh, well, there's something else. Okay, I want to be of service, even when and even if I feel discomfort. And the amazing thing is, when we are totally taken by the pain, it often is corresponding with a sense of powerlessness and helplessness. Like, this is the whole world and it's terrible and la la la. It's very dark. And yet, when we then ask ourselves, what is, just simply, how do I want to be of service? Or how can I create some space around, and then give that action? It can be as simple as taking a walk, or, like you're saying, talking to a colleague, or in the example I'm giving, being of service. There's something almost miraculous that happens, which is that the space around the pain gets as much energy, and you can touch it, and it builds confidence, so that the pain sort of becomes a spot on the wall as opposed to the wall itself. There's a whole canvas that you start to feel from it. And that, as a leader, I found is the greatest, well, not greatest, as a service I can give to others when they are in pain, helping them see that there's something else, there's something in them besides the pain, that can be aware of it, that they can hold it, and that they're capable of other things besides that. And then also asking, what do you need? Sometimes that may need, I need some time, I need some nourishment, whatever that is. Yeah.
Pain begets opportunity. And we each, I think, learn that at very different stages and times. When I think about how I've approached my career and my life, I've always looked to solve problems, and problems often cause pain. But if you look at the great people that inspire you, often they've taken pain head on. They've taken a pain of whether it was themselves, a group that they represent, nationalities, whatever it is. And they've taken that as kind of their rallying cry. And let's even boil that down to a team. Hey, you and I met a few years back because you were doing some coaching for a team that I was a part of. And I would say between that coaching and those workshops, and also some of the work that I've done intentionally around, diving into the works of Brené Brown, specifically Dare to Lead, it changed a lot of how I led and how I lead. And what I mean by that is, I came up in an environment where it was important to just jump in, get straight to the point, jump in, talk about the business. Where are we? Where's this deal? Where's the forecast? And then we move on. And that wasn't wrong. It was the nature of the environment at those times in the early 2000s, then the 2010s. And it was just the nature of the business. You jump in, you're in the interest of time, you move swiftly. But in that, a lot of the personal element got lost. And, I had a leader a few years back that also helped really complement this. The power that you get when you open a meeting with your team or a one-on-one with a check-in, and you understand what is top of mind for them, or what are the outcomes that they want to have out of the meeting that you're having, that may totally reframe what you thought the meeting was going to be about. And that's a good thing. That's okay, because it means that you're staying at the pulse of what matters to that person. It's also showing your versatility and your flexibility as a leader to be able to really dive in and get a feel for what's top of mind for this person. If they're struggling through something and they want to share that with me, that is an investment of trust. You can handle that one of two ways. You can sit in that pain with your team member, or you can briefly acknowledge it and move on with your agenda. Guess which one is going to set the more sturdy foundation for where you want to take a connectedness, with your team going forward. And so I think that's why it's all the more important to make sure that not only are you showing up willing to be that beacon of connectedness and look for embracing and understanding the benefits that can come from pain, but also when you see a teammate, team member, colleague, fellow human being that's in pain, the calling to you is how can you sit in that and be of support?
Thank you, Carson. So after the break, we're going to look at how can we be with pain of ourselves and of others and really use it for change and for more connected teamwork. We're going to take a look at that after the break. So you've been listening to the Connected Teamwork podcast, or in episode 25, we're talking about the ouch. How do we work with pain, that of ourselves and that of others? See you after the break.
You are listening to the Connected Teamwork podcast by Growth Leaders Network. Do you want to learn more about building the next level of connectedness in your team? Please contact Growth Leaders Network on LinkedIn. And now, back to the show.
Just want to reflect, Carson, that this sort of leaning into pain is so empowering. Like it's sort of like, yes, we can handle life. And that creates such resilience and trust, like creating a place where people want to be, because they know that also that, yeah, you're welcome. That's also welcome. Doesn't mean that it's going to run the show, that it's going to be everything. It's going to be part of the whole picture. So let's talk about how do we work with pain and use it for growth and for creating more teamwork. What do you think, Carson?
That's important, Hylke. And what's funny is over time, I've realized that there's a lot of benefit of pain, and we've talked about that today. But the music is better too. Like there's a lot of benefit to even just listening to almost depressing or like darker music during those times that like you can feel it. You can feel where you are as you're kind of becoming that phoenix that rises from the ashes. So even the music is better sometimes if you embrace the pain. I wanted to throw that little anecdote out, but I think what's really important when it comes to pain is that acknowledgement of it as reality and validating that emotion with yourself and also with the people that you're working with. That is a valid feeling. Pain is real. It happens. It's inevitable. So being able to ensure that we understand that that is a natural part of our experience. And like we were talking about before the break, that you've established this culture where being able to talk about that is okay and accepted and embraced. And then we can sit in that together. And I think that kind of begets the second piece in my lens is being able to share experiences. There's a lot of value when you have pain to knowing that you're not alone and to knowing that there's someone else that has maybe experienced something very similar, that has gone through it and not only survived, but thrived. And then furthermore, those people that can kind of be that beacon of hope, somebody that you trust and that has been successful in that situation, that you feel comfortable talking with about these experiences, and they can really help you. I would be remiss not to point out that this year has been one of the most challenging years for me personally that I've ever had. But it's amazing what has come out of being able to share that experience with people that I trust, and the hope that those folks have given me, the guidance that they've given me, and just the prayers and the support and just being there for me, and the true friendships that I think sometimes when you spend a lot of people in a business setting, you don't really know the value of, is this person just working with me or talking to me because we work together, or did they value me as a person? And the number of people that have really emerged this year that I know that they genuinely care, that has spoken to me a great deal. So being able to sit in that together and really have that enrichment and fulfillment from shared experiences, I think that's so important when you're experiencing and working through the pain.
I hear in that, Carson, a support to restore you to your wholeness. It's like it's a sense of, yeah, you're going through things, Carson, and it can be anyone. We're human beings. We go through things. And if we try not to go through things, we're going through things. The more we open the aperture of our experience, just turn on the news, there it is. Like every day, it's there, right? It doesn't take very much to experience part of this part of humanity and leadership, which is about pain. And sometimes it comes really close, so we can't look the other way anymore because it happens in our family or in our team. And in these moments, it can really help to almost help breathe together with somebody else. And the breathing together can be literal breathing together. It can be asking questions, not like an interrogation, but as a friend. It's like, so tell me more. How does that feel? And simply the act of naming the feeling brings awareness to it. And by bringing awareness to the feeling, it loses its power to dominate our thoughts. And then when it starts to no longer dominate our thoughts, we have much more choice in terms of, oh, I can go this way, I can that way. Oh, I'm sad or I feel pain and I can still do my work. Or I can still talk to this person. And I can still do the dishes. I can still go do this deal, whatever I'm doing. I can still I can still do this. And that by itself is restoring us to our wholeness. Because it's like, oh, it's not one part that runs the show. All these parts can run together, right? Now, sometimes I think, wow, wouldn't it be great if humans just didn't experience pain? And some of the medications seem to be all for that. Like one of the things I was struck by when I moved to the US is how much this 30 years ago, when I had a cold or a fever or something like that, people were asking, so what are you taking for? Like, oh, nothing. I'm supposed to take this. I'm just supposed to feel this, right? And so when I think back of that, pain, you think about what's the purpose of pain? Well, for me, it often points to something that needs attention. Right? Something that needs deep care and attention. And I can't always see what it is. It often requires a little reflection. Like, what does it take? What needs attention right now? Maybe I just need to be kind to this part of me that is trying too hard and just restore it. Like, no, maybe it's okay. Maybe the pain is a indicator that I'm holding on to something that is not mine. Right? That I'm holding on to, I'm trying to control something that's not mine. And maybe the pain is simply an adjustment, the body and the mind adjusting to the new situation of a loss. But just like with crossing of the elbows, it's like our system learning at a very deep level to adjust to a new situation, and that can be painful. And sometimes, and I don't have much experience with this, chronic pain, that's a whole other area. And that would probably be a whole other podcast. I don't want to talk about it because the only thing I know what to do with that is to be with it for another, to be with it, and to help remind the other person to the extent that's needed or wanted, that we're still here. That may be the only thing I can say. And I'm sure people that have chronic pain have a lot more to say about that. Carson, we are amazingly getting to the last few minutes of this conversation. What do you want to say to somebody? What are your reflections on this? Last reflections on this topic of pain?
Yeah, you said some really important things in the course of this dialogue, Hylke, and one that really just jumped out at me is, looking at and being able to understand the growth and the pain. What is this an indicator of? Sometimes it's telling us our physical limits, and sometimes it's telling us things that we should redirect our attention to. It's a breakdown in the ship, and we need to throw our attention to that in order to more effectively navigate forward. And I think about the different types of pain that, I've seen in my career, but also as a leader. That can be, things that I look back on times where, I had pain within my career journey, or I had both brought on by me and, being overzealous, all the way to things that happened like being laid off that I had no control over. But each one of them makes you look at things, how you can conduct yourselves differently as a result. What did you learn from that experience? Being able to look back and connect the dots backwards and saying, how could I act differently as a result so that the next experience is even more positive and I can safeguard or insulate myself from some of the negative experiences. And note that I didn't say safeguarding yourselves or insulating yourselves from the pain, because the pain will always come and be there. Also, sometimes pain will hit in your career, and learning how to better create new relationships and new skills as a result of that. To your earlier point, where is the pain pointing you to address your focus? Sometimes pain can guide you to making new career decisions. And then lastly, from a lens as a leader, being able to look at, the pain that your team is feeling. And sometimes this could be personalized pain that they're having. What's the experience that I can have? Is there an opportunity that I can either help them based on my experience, or there's a resource that I can help them understand more about that they didn't know before that can be a game changer for them personally or individually? All the way to dramatic changes that happen on the team or with the team dynamic, when there's layoffs or when there's massive organizational change. You've got to find the way to keep the steady hand on the wheel amidst that pain. And that's a learned muscle. That is not something that comes innately. You may be handling that for the very, very first time, and you're one of the people that's being shaken up with this massive change. So whatever your pain is and whatever that lens, look to, what is it guiding me toward? What is this pain telling me that I should maybe pay attention to or more attention to as a result? And what is the conceivable learning that I can get here that's going to make me better going forward?
Thanks. That brings me right to a practical tool that we can use. Use a pain point as a pinpoint. Now, use a pain point as a pinpoint to what needs attention. And if you have some pain somewhere, if you're listening, I kind of could say, if you're human and you're listening, just feel whatever where your pain is, because my sense is everybody has it somewhere. And if you don't feel it, I'm not trying to create it for you, but maybe some like, what are the places of life in my life, my leadership, my team, my world, my community that may need some extra care and attention? And that may be also a good practice for these holiday weeks, where they tend to, at least sometimes, we are seduced into thinking like it's like holly jolly joy, and there's no space for anything else, which makes the pain for those that have it severely much more jarring. So how can I extend some real kindness, some humanness, so it becomes really a wholesome experience for everyone? Carson, what else do you want to say by way of closing?
Embrace your pain and look for the teachings and the learnings. It's never going to be, you're never going to lead a pain-free existence, and the pain will look different each time. So learn to embrace it, learn to help others through it, and those will be the lessons and the learnings that are the most valuable.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening in this inquiry into the ouch and embracing all of life, all of leadership, all of team, including the pain. So thanks for listening, and thanks for being us, and see you next time at the Connected Teamwork Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Connected Teamwork Podcast by Growth Leaders Network. Take a moment to reflect on what you learned today that can help build your team. Also, if you like, think about one of your team members and what you appreciate about them. Let them know. Enjoy connecting more deeply to what is great about them. And see you next time at the Connected Teamwork Podcast.